bag of monkeys.
Bag of monkeys.
The term is.
Sure, monkeys.
So.
Why not? Hello, and welcome to another episode of the As Yet Unnamed podcast. I am Swaku, and with me today is my ever wonderful host, John.
Hello.
And before we start today's podcast, let's just say we've hit 300 subscribers. Woo!
Wow.
Yeah, 300. It's a whole Chinese wedding. It's been great to have you along for the ride. No matter if you've just joined us or you've been here from the start. Anyway, back to the podcast. Take it away, John.
Yep. So today we'll be having a look at the Toreador deck from the 30th anniversary box called the Endless Dance.
30. That's a long time.
Yeah, we've been at it for a while, haven't we?
We have, it sounds like VtES is entering middle age soonish.
So the blurb from the Black Chantry website reads, this pre-constructed deck includes not just reprints, but also entirely new crypt cards and several new library cards bolstering the political aspect of the game. It is also suitable for new players looking to start with a ready-made deck that explores dealings, negotiations, and machinations of the eternal struggle.
So this is an interesting pre-constructed box. It's kind of similar to the 25th anniversary one, right? Where you have a full deck and then you have a bunch of extra cards that sort of bolster the game to some extent. And we probably won't be looking at all the extra cards today. We have another video coming up soon-ish, where we'll go through some of the Justy cards at least. Anyway, here are some stats for our statistically inclined viewers and listeners. The deck has 12 vampires, 6 of which are unique, and having 4 unique titles among them. Average capacity is 7.5, which is actually lower than what you expect to see during the game, because you have a single 2-cap, a single 3-cap, a single 4-cap, and then everything else is 8 and above. So you tend to see the higher capacity vampires. There are 88 library cards in the deck, not including the extras that we talked about earlier. 32% masters, 1 single action card, 24% political cards, 20% modifiers, 9% combat, 14% reaction. So this is a clearly political action based deck.
Yep.
So new cards. There's a whole new crypt. We're going to go through some of them, and we've actually got 4 new library cards. First crypt card, Diana Eadanza, or I've heard some people pronounce it as Diana, whichever way it works. 9 capacity, Toreador, Camarilla Justica, all 3 superior Inkland disciplines with superior fortitude. During a referendum she calls, Diana can burn 1 blood to cancel a reaction card as it is played, and the cost is still paid in reminder text. And she's got +1 bleed.
Yeah, she's pretty great. Fortitude's a great out-of-plan discipline to have. Justica for 9 cap is a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Her text is super relevant. And I guess the best thing about it is just the fact that she has it kind of prevents people from even bothering to play reactions, and you don't even have to pay the blood for that effect.
Oh, in theory, yes. But you know how VtES players play games. Nobody reads the cards. Somebody's gonna play it's like, aha, delaying tactics, gotcha, and just gonna get gotcha back and just be shocked that card text exists.
Surprise Pikachu
face.
Yeah, and on top of all that, why not just give her +1 bleed?
And it's really good in... at the end of the day, Toreador essentially have got 3 separate playstyles, and the +1 bleed with Fortitude always works with any of the playstyles. So if you go Grand Ball, which is what this deck is, Fortitude gives you extra actions to play your non-bleed effects. If you're playing Aching Beauty, Fortitude means multiple Aching Beauty hits. And if Aching Beauty doesn't trigger and your action is successful, it's still multiple actions. And if you run guns, well, Fortitude is good for guns. +1 bleed is also good for guns because you need a way to oust. And last I checked, guns don't oust.
Yeah, they certainly don't.
You did mention earlier when we were having a chat that she kind of hangs out better with the V5 crypt rather than the Endless Dance crypt just because of the Fortitude.
That's right. So there's, I think, 3 princes in the V5 pre-constructed deck that have inferior fortitude. So add those to Diana, and you've got, 3 princes and a Justica, all with fortitude and the other clan disciplines. It's a good way to, in a vote deck, you call your vote, follow up with a bleed or whatever else that you might be doing.
Diana's a good card, basically.
Yeah, I don't have anything bad to say about her.
Next crit card, VtES. VtES is the Toreador 8 capacity Camera Prince of Gary. Gary is, I believe, a city in Illinois. Anyway, all 3 superior incline disciplines with inferior obfuscate, and during the polling step of any referendum, VtES can discard a master card to get +1 vote.
So, when the deck list was being spoiled, I think a few of us noticed, like, hey, this deck has a lot of master cards. There must be some kind of outlet. Like, some were speculating, oh, maybe there's another Anson on the way for multiple master phase actions. But I think this actually works out better. I like it better. If you're doing typical Toreador Voti stuff, because MMPA is its own bag of monkeys.
Bag of monkeys.
The term is.
Sure, monkeys. So. Why not?
And I think it's better for the game. But yeah.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you here. Ultimately, the problem with multiple master phase abilities is that you have to play them. So if you draw 2 Zilla's Valley, say mid-game or late game, if you want to clear them out, you have to basically spend 10 pool just to play 2 cards to get rid of, to cycle. And 10 pool to cycle is a lot, last I checked. Whereas this is a much better way to cycle unnecessary cards.
Yep.
It's also good that VtES' ability can be used during any referendum. So you can have someone else call a vote and pitch a master card that way. And you can even do it during Blood Hunts if that ever comes up.
Solid.
Yeah, which was what I was going to say. All in all, I think solid. If we start finishing each other's sentences, people might get the wrong idea. Anyway, 8 capacity prince with special, definitely a good card if you can find space for him.
As far as inferior or non-clan disciplines, obfuscate also pretty relevant.
It is. And
not that he has friends to play with.
It does. He does have a friend. It's just a friend that you're not particularly keen on, and we'll meet him in a bit.
Oh, okay.
So
I think I know.
Next up, Marcus Belgrade, 8 capacity Toreador Camera Prince of Bogota. All 3 superior incline disciplines and inferior animalism. Methuselah's casting, including controlling a minion casting votes or ballots against a referendum called by Marcus, burn 1 pool when the results are tallied. He's basically a Scorn of Adonis on a stick.
I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you where Bogota is.
South American?
The capital of Colombia, apparently.
Anyway, yes.
You like this card, don't you?
Yes, I really do like Marcus. I think the ability of Scorn of Adonis on a stick works similar to Diana's ability, where the threat of it actually helps you more than the actual pool burn. Most of the time, and I think we've talked about this offline, is that if someone wants to, or rather, if the table wants to vote your political action down, it's never going to pass. But what it does do is, on votes that aren't too hard to convince the table on, you can easily get, these days you've got a lot of accidental or incidental titles. People play barons because of organized switch. So the odd title here and there isn't rare, and his ability basically makes it such that it's not in a player's interest to say, oh yeah, well, 2 votes against just because.
Yeah. So you compared him to Scorn of Adonis on a stick. I think in practice it works out slightly differently. So when you're calling a vote with Marcos, it's very much telegraphed. If you vote against this, you're going to burn a pool. So whatever he calls, he's going to get to cap, and that's good. The difference from that and playing Scorn of Adonis in the deck is you can play it after votes are cast.
Mm-hmm.
So you flash one of those or two early in the game, and chances are people aren't going to randomly vote against you for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's like a coma or entombment effect, right?
Yeah.
That's Marcos. Next up, Francois Villon. He's back. And he is that one other friend that Modius can hang out with Outferior Obfuscate. Francois Villon is a 10 capacity Toreador, Camarilla Prince of Paris. All 3 superior Inkland disciplines, inferior Animalism, inferior Obfuscate, and inferior Potence. If Francois is ready during your unlock phase, he can burn 2 blood to unlock a younger vampire, and Francois has +1 bleed. So this is the Group 6 reprint or the Group 6 version of Francois, and he does contest with the Group 2 version that may or may not have come up for me before on the final table.
There's one slight difference between his older printing, or Group 2 printing rather. He's got Animalism now as opposed to Chemistry, neither of which were very relevant. But I guess having Animalism means he can combo with Marcos.
Oh, that's that. Animalism also means that if you do end up playing, say, a more defensive deck, you can always run a copy of Army of Reds.
Indeed.
We kind of disagree on whether he's better or worse than his older version, I think. I was saying that it's similar in terms of like his ability. The old Group 2 version allows him to steal 2 blood from a younger vampire as a 1 stealth action, and this allows you to burn 2 blood to lock a younger vampire. Maybe I'm just more used to Toreador being low stealth, and we'll see. We'll talk about this in a little bit when we look at library cards, but with Toreador having low stealth idea in the back of my head, burning 2 blood to essentially get a misdirection effect isn't bad, and because it's 10 capacity, you can kind of lock down a fair number of vampires because he's older. Sorry, just to clarify, not because you can do it multiple times.
I kind of put old Francois on a pedestal. Big fan. I'm just very used to people locking down their vamps and playing wakes, so...
That is fair, although I feel like sometimes you do get superior deflections. Yeah, it's good to lock down a dominate vampire. So I think one of the feels, for lack of a better phrase, is that he doesn't really sit well in this deck, in the sense that you kind of want Dinah to be the star. You want her to be the focus of the deck, and you don't really want to do a Dinah first, followed by a Francois, because that's 19 pool, and you're only getting essentially +1 bleed and +2 votes, at least for a bit until, you know, the incident, the opportunistic.
I think that the crutch of problem is he's a 10 cap prince. There aren't many very good 10 cap princes.
But you're right, 10 capacity for a prince is a lot, especially, you know, when you're looking at the rest of the deck.
Yeah.
Okay, so new library cards. We have 4 of them in the Endless Dance deck. First up, Loop. It is an action modifier that requires Toreador. Only 1 loop can be played each turn. Put this card in play, Toreador get +1 stealth. Burn this card at the end of the turn or after Toreador performs a successful action. So it's stealth that is very easily cyclable, even if you don't need stealth. Notably, you can play it when stealth is not required because the actual effect is just to put it into play. And then when it's in play, it just instantly gives all Toreador +1 stealth. So you could play this even after blocks have been declined just to cycle a card.
Disciplineless stealth is good.
Yeah.
And Toreador, one of the things they were kind of lacking was affordable stealth. They have some blood costing stealth options, but having one that doesn't cost blood, good.
Mm-hmm.
Naturally, if your action goes through, you can't play it on the next action, or you don't get its benefit on the next action. So you can't complain too much because that means your first action was successful. It's more like a consolation prize. If you end up being blocked after playing loop, at least it stays around for the next action.
That's an interesting point, and it reminds me of Uncontrolled Impulse. So Uncontrolled Impulse requires you to play it on the first action each turn. Loop kind of incentivizes you to do the same, I feel. What it does is it forces you to, not forces, but it incentivizes you to front load powerful actions. Usually in VtES, if you have a wide enough board, you might lead with smaller, less impactful actions, and you hope to get those through and then actually fight the stealth intercept on your more important actions. Whereas this one, because of the way it interacts with subsequent actions, you might actually want to put your Cameraless Iron Fist, for example, up front and try to get it through. And then, like you said, if it gets blocked, you still get the consolation of the next action having stealth.
You're going to hear this from me a couple times, but I'm of the opinion of Toreador being a combat-oriented clan, so I'm not always going to play stealth, and I don't think this goes into anything else because anything I'm building, because I'm happy to get into a fight and throw out my combat cards.
Maybe 2 copies.
I'll think about it.
And that's all I can ask.
Next up, we have Camarilla Conclave. Master card, unique, requires just a card or Inner Circle member. Put this into play with 4 counters during a political action performed by a Camarilla vampire you control, or its polling step. You can burn 1 counter from this card to give the acting vampire +1 stealth, or to give each non-Camarilla vampire -1 vote. If this card has no counters, burn it.
Sounds good on paper.
What do you think?
I've tried it a couple of times, and it's one of those cards that you don't really want to run too many in your deck.
Yeah, it's the kind of card where if you're in the right position, you're gonna burn through those counters quick. Actually, it's more like if you're in the wrong position, you're gonna burn through those counters quick because you're gonna need them. But if you're in a good position where you don't really need the stealth or the extra votes, then it just kind of sits there and does nothing, right?
Yep. It's basically a response, right, to organized resistance and barons, just on its face.
Right. So this kind of counteracts that intercept. And if neither your prey or predators are interested in blocking, then the other use of those counters is votes. But again, it kind of depends where the non-Camarilla votes are. If your predator or prey are Camarilla, you don't get to minus their votes. If your allies are Anarchs or the butt, then you end up, the benefit of the vote bit really depends on table seating.
And one of the things I feel for Camarilla Conclave is that for a political deck, it sits in an odd position because it's not a win more. When I first tried out Camarilla Conclave, I think being used to having cards in political decks that are essentially win more, so potential win more, this felt a little weird. Like when do I fire it? And you're right, it's really just a card that helps you solve a problem, and it could just be a card you put in play and it sits around forever, and the other copies in your deck that you draw just becomes dead cards.
Mm-hmm.
If only there was a way to get rid of extra master cards that you can't play. That's like, right there in the deck or something.
When it first came out, I tried running like 3-4 copies, and I quickly realized, oh, I don't get to use this as much as I thought I would.
This card doesn't burn through counters quick, because you can only burn one counter a turn. An action. And if you're in a deck where you're looking at 9 caps, 8 caps, you maybe have 2 political actions a turn. So this would stick around for at least 2 turns.
And don't feel too bad if you don't have it just because you're not running Justice cards or Inner Circles. Don't bend over backward to get it in there. That's what I'm saying.
Coming up, Camarill's Iron Fist. Political action, cost a blood, requires a titled Camarilla Vampire. Choose a Methuselah and allocate 5 points among 2 or more other Methuselahs. Successful referendum means each Methuselah burns 1 pool for each point allocated, and the chosen Methuselah gains 1 pool. This was a card that generated a lot of questions because of the way it reads.
Yeah, so the first thing you want to draw parallel against is a reckless agitation, right? Which also says 2 or more other Methuselahs. The difference being when this card, or when reckless agitation refers to other Methuselahs, it's other than yourself. This card is other than the first chosen Methuselah, which is gaining the pool.
Yeah, so essentially, this card is only playable with 3 players.
The one edge this one has is that you can choose to take the 1 damage and give, let's say, your Grand Prey a pool.
Yeah.
The other neat thing about it is it's finally a vote card that Inner Circles will consider playing. Because, Inner Circles, most of them, they can just tap and bleed for 3. So, Reckless Agitation, KRC isn't that great of a card for most Inner Circles. Iron Fist, on the other hand, is a bit of a step up.
It's a good card. I'm not 100% sure Camarilla needs this because they've got Parity Shift, no one else has. But it hasn't been, broken and tearing up the tournament scene, so...
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised.
Yeah. Going from a great card that we've been gushing about to a card that I don't really rate, Confiscation. Another political action requires a titled vampire. Choose an equipment and a vampire. Successful referendum means the chosen vampire takes control of the chosen equipment. Not a fan of this card. What do you think, John?
The main reason you would want to play this is to deny actually getting the equipment yourself or giving it to someone. I guess is kind of just the gravy part of it.
At the end of the day, I think what it is if you want a specific equipment, just play it. At the end of the day, you're right. It is essentially a remove equipment card, and the ability to give it to someone else is really there to help it pass, I feel.
Fair.
I also think it is good with, this is similar to Disputed Territories, although I think Disputed Territory is slightly better because locations have a greater impact on the game.
They're more frequently played, right?
Yeah. Especially with Carfax Abbey, Club Illusion, and Hunting Grounds in general are making a comeback as well, I've noticed.
Just the good ones.
Just the good ones.
Just the good ones.
What? You're not seeing an uptick in Kingston Penitentiary? No?
I mean, I am like the one person who would consider playing that card, so I can't really comment.
Anyway, I've gone off on a tangent, but my point was more that it's really good if you have, say, a copy in there that you can somehow recur. So if you've got some form of recursion, say if you want to start denying people guns, a gun deck would have more than one, so taking a single copy of 44 Magnum is not necessarily the best thing you could do, but if you could take 2 or 3 of those, it becomes a relevant card. The baseline again is kind resources contested, and I feel this falls below that.
I guess is one worth going over the different items represented in the art. It's a neat little nod to whatever items are actually relevant in the game.
Or whatever Ines thinks is relevant in the game.
Ali's Fang.
Yeah, Kali's Fang clearly relevant. I think that's the Codex of the Edenic Groundskeeper.
Yep.
And apparently that piece of art next to Kali's Fang is the Tapestry of Blood.
Oh, is that what it is? I thought the painting. I thought there was a Waxen Poetica in there somewhere.
Could be. I mean,
paintings are paintings.
Let us know, I guess, in the comment section. So with that, that is all the new cards that are in the deck proper. There are a handful of additional cards that have been included in the box that are not part of the deck. First up is Nicholas Vermeulen, a Nosferatu 7 capacity Camera Prince of Brussels. Superior Animalism, Superior Potence, Inferior Obfuscate, and Inferior Fortitude. During your influence phase, you can burn the edge to add 1 blood to a Nosferatu in your uncontrolled region. So Nicholas is also a Group 6 reprint of a Group 2, 3.
Yep, he's had a bit of a facelift.
Oh yeah, the dentist who's done work on his teeth. Oh my god. If you, yeah, that's some really good work.
Yep. So his card text, pretty neat. It triggers during your influence phase, right? So if he pulls off a bleed, gets the edge, you can burn it immediately to get a blood on a north in your uncontrolled region. No restrictions on, older or younger, or even same age. You can put it on extra copies of Nikolaus. You can put it on older vamps.
And he doesn't even have to be the one to bleed. You just have to have the edge somehow.
At the very least, it means you don't have to remember if you had the edge at the start of your turn. You just, put it down and pull it back immediately.
Forgetting the edge, it's a thing. So he is one of 3 Nosferatu princes in Group 5-6, notably the only one with Superior Animalism.
The only one with Superior Potence.
Yeah, so his discipline spread, I feel, is something that's been missing in Group 5-6 princes.
He's just the right age for Sense the Savage Way, so that's solid.
And Inferior Fortitude also means he hangs out great with Alonso.
Yeah, a great new partner for Alonso, because that's one thing he's been lacking, right? Nicholas really flies into that void.
So yeah, all in all, great upgrade from his Group 2 version. Much needed prince in Group 5-6 Nosferatu. Okay, next vampire, Donald O'Connor. 8 capacity, Bruja, Camarilla Prince of Dublin. Superior Celerity, Superior Dominate, Superior Potence. During a minion phase, Donald can burn 1 blood to unlock.
He's got the same disciplines as his previous incarnation, right?
Mm-hmm.
The problem being is he's no longer in a group where he's got other Bruja friends that have similar disciplines, right?
Having said that, he can actually hang out with Alonso and Nicholas to a certain extent, just to run Potence Dominate.
Potence Dominate and Prince stuff, so second traditions and Iron Fists.
Yep.
Now remind me, does Alonso have Superior Dominate?
Yes, he does.
He does.
Yeah.
So that's a good govern chain, right? You can govern into Donald, and Donald continues to govern into Nick.
Yes, definitely. And then Nick can, I don't know, put blood on more Alonsos because full recovery is good.
Yep.
That's Donald. And the last extra vampire in the group that we're talking, in the box that we're going to talk about today, is Anniversary Toreador. 9 capacity, Toreador, Camarilla Primogen. All 3 Spirit Clan disciplines, Inferior Dominate and Inferior Fortitude. While Annabelle is locked, other Toreador you control get +1 stealth. You and I have talked about this incarnation of Annabelle Toreador quite a bit. Offline, clearly.
Yeah, it's almost like offline or online and lost.
Off camera.
For some reason. You mean on camera but lost for some reason?
On camera but lost for some reason. Yes.
I mean, Dominate, good. Fortitude, good. Card text, good. She's got all these good things, but just in terms of practicality, it's hard to fit her in to a game plan. Because she's only Primogen, it's unlikely you're going to bring her out first in a vote deck because you're going to want to bring out either a Prince or Justicar or second traditions first.
Yep.
Then do you consider bringing her out second? Again, she's only one vote. She's 9 cap, so it's not like you can really enchant down to her. I don't think you bring her out second either. And certainly not third. So where does she go? She doesn't really play well with others, even though her card text is all about playing well with others. I think she wants to be a star of her own deck.
An embrace sort of deck.
Yeah. Embraces either Auspex or Primogen reactions. That new Primogen reaction, pretty good.
Protected District.
That's the one. Auspex, pretty good. So it's not like you're hurting for second traditions, but it does mean you can't build the typical Camarilla vote with her.
Yeah. When she was initially put up on the spoiler list, I looked at her and I was like, yeah, 9 is a lot of pool investment, but I did initially think that you could use Villain or Minion Tap to basically just make her a 1 pool investment or 4 pool investment, depending on which flavor you play. But since then, I've realized that, just like what you said, she's not just 9 pool, she's also 9 transfers. And you don't want to spend 9 transfers just to give your non-existent other Toreadors +1 stealth if she's the first one out. If she's the second vampire out, you essentially spend 3 turns worth of transfers to give one other vampire +1 stealth. At which point, just plays loop. Really.
Yes. Yeah, similar to you. I saw her with a blip of fortitude and thought, oh, she'll go great with, Diana and the V5 princes. But yeah, it doesn't play out the way you might think. That said, that card text is solid. I think there is something you can build there with her and a bunch of embraces and or a bunch of younger vamps.
Mm-hmm. So those are the 3 new vampires that aren't Justicars. Next up is the library cards. We've actually got only 2 new library cards, but we do have 2 library card reprints with new art. So the 2 new library cards are the Banu Hakim Justica and the La Sombra Justica. They're both political actions. They're both a title card. And essentially pick a Camarilla vampire of the appropriate clan and make them a Justica. And then in that referendum, each vampire of the appropriate clan gets an additional 1 vote.
I mean, it's nothing new, right? Justica vote cards are a thing that have existed previously for other clans.
Yeah, it's really good though that the BCP has cleaned up the text. So now it actually says you have to choose a ready Camarilla vampire instead of having that requirement in a ruling. And I'm a big fan of reading the card explains the card as opposed to reading the card makes you want to go dig up rulings. So those are the new Justica cards. The 2 new cards that have got new art, Business Pressure and Third Tradition Progeny. Although I'm not sure the new art will make anyone want to actually play Business Pressure.
I need to see it actually play out on a table. I think there could be some value to somehow inciting a pool burning war.
A game of parody shift chicken, if you would.
Sure. Okay.
That's all the new cards and new arts from the box. There are a bunch of reprints that are new to V5. You have Awe, Charismatic Aura, Hope Fangs, the Louvre, Protected Resources with a slight text update, Alastor, Anathema, and Reinforcements. So that's the deck from the box.
Where do you take it?
Where do I take it? That is the question. I think ultimately it is a Toreador Grand Ball vote deck. That's kind of all the deck does. It can bleed at some amounts of stealth with a couple of vampires that has +1 bleed, but ultimately you're looking at bringing out, say, 2 Prince/Justica, and then one of the 2, 3, or 4 caps. Play the Grand Ball and just vote unblockably.
Yeah, I certainly feel like some of the cards they've included in the deck aren't really the best choices for the deck and have just been included because they would be a good reprint.
Any examples?
Any examples? I think Grand Ball and Loop don't go together well. Either you're unblockable or you're not, right? So
yeah,
Francois Vallon, also not a great fit for the deck, but he needed to go somewhere. I think there's some crypt tweaking you can do if you choose to continue with the Grand Ball kind of angle.
V5 Toreador Princes that you mentioned earlier that have got Fortitude, they're pretty good as a option to swap out, say, Francois or some of the other vampires. Them having access to Force March and Freak Drive means you can vote, and then maybe, I don't know, if you're playing Marcos, you could sneak in a Army of Rats unblockably, steal Power-Based Montreal, burn other people's Army of Rats, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
But having said that, that's all still within the Toreador Grand Ball strategy, which I have to admit I'm not a fan of, and you've not been a fan of, I believe.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
But you are a fan of guns in a Toreador deck.
Before we get into guns,
yes,
you mentioned earlier Toreador has a few archetypes, right? Grand Ball 1, Aching Beauty is another.
Yes.
And what were the other ones that you had in mind?
Just guns, right? That's the third one. I feel like Toreador typically, so unless you're building a specific theme deck, like a Annabelle Treebell deck, for example, it's generally just these 3. Grand Ball, Aching Beauty, guns. If you want to swap into Aching Beauty, it's an easy swap. You can swap in the V5 Vamps, swap out Toreador Grand Ball for Aching Beauty, obviously, and get some change of targets. If you choose to go this sort of higher capacity route for Aching Beauty, you don't even need the 3 younger vampires. Just drop them and just run the vampires with Fortitude and +1 bleed and mix it up. So if you get blocked, change your target. If you don't get blocked, Force March or Freak Drive and then do something else.
This is something kind of new to Toreador in the whole multi-act angle. Only the 6/7 Crypt have enough vamps with Toreador kind of splashed in, and conveniently, a bunch of them are also Princes and Justicars.
You're not wrong.
I was previously running the V5 Princes with Demetra, because she also has Presence, Celerity, Fortitude, and Votes. But I think Diana's just a straight upgrade there. Maybe not a straight upgrade, but it makes it a little more homogenous.
Being Incline's good, and Diana's also good.
Do we really want to talk about guns?
Yeah, well, we don't really have to. Just to have a quick cap on the third option for Toreadors, I think what you mentioned before is Toreador have Celerity and Auspex. Both are good for getting into fights, so that is an angle that is worth exploring. They're really strong in it.
And if you're not leaning into it, then what clan disciplines or benefits are you really making use of, right? If you're only using Presence, go play Ventru instead.
Yeah, the Ventru Law Firm is a non-good archetype. Slightly weaker these days because of Organized Switch, but still strong. Okay, I think we've pretty much come to the end of this deck review and today's podcast. Thank you, John, once again for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you for having me.
And we hope you at home have found this useful. And if you think we've missed anything or anything else you'd like to see, let us know in the comments. Thank you for hanging all the way to the end of the podcast. It's a great way to help the channel. And yeah, we might get more than 300 the next time we record a new video. Until next time, see ya!
Bye bye.